Have you ever witnessed a moment when seemingly absolute power had to bow down to unyielding silence? At a bustling international airport in front of hundreds of onlookers, a woman of color was dragged out of her first-class seat, simply because she didn't fit the image they expected. They thought she would stay silent. They thought she would accept it. But just minutes later, the entire airport system was paralyzed. Flights were grounded, and a billion-dollar corporation was forced to bow its head to the truth. That woman was not just a passenger. She was the architect behind the technology system they had tried to weaponize against her. Today, let's follow this shocking journey, a journey that turned those scorned tears into a tsunami that changed an entire industry. If you feel the power of this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel to follow more inspiring stories. Let's begin. She didn't say a word, didn't make a single mistake, not even a glance out of place. Yet Maya Robinson was dragged out of her seat in first class in front of a cabin full of strangers, just because she was a woman of color. No shouting, no danger, just simply because of her skin color. The flight attendant showed no hesitation. The passengers around her hardly reacted, while the security team acted as though this was just a routine procedure. 1 minute, Maya was quietly fastening her seatbelt, and the next she was escorted down the aisle like a criminal. What they didn't know was that the woman they just humiliated wasn't a stranger, but someone whom their entire system secretly relied on to operate. This story isn't just about a seat. This is the line between privilege and prejudice. And what happens when the person society tries to erase turns out to be the one holding its very survival in her hands? Think you can predict what happens next? Trust me, this story has many twists here, where you're following from and what you think will happen next. If you're hooked, don't forget to like and subscribe, because once the truth takes off, there's no turning back. Maya Robinson stood patiently in line at Gate 12, passport in hand, phone in the other, wearing a simple cream-colored suit paired with elegant black dress pants. Her refined appearance didn't need to draw attention, but naturally demanded respect. The shiny black carry-on suitcase beside her glistened under the lights, its handle embossed with the initials IMR. This wasn't her first time taking this flight, but this time was different. Her destination was Paris, where she would deliver an important speech and sign a global partnership agreement. Maya arrived early, well-prepared, and mentally focused. She approached the biometric scanner, the blue lights blinking gently. "Next passenger," the screen instructed. Maya lifted her chin and looked directly into the camera. The scanner scanned once, then again, before flashing red. Identity could not be verified. Manual check requested. She blinked, surprised. Behind her, the line of passengers began to lose patience. The attendant at the scanner forced a stiff, polite smile. "Please step aside for manual check," she said. Maya frowned. Why, the attendant's voice was sweet, yet cold. Sometimes the facial recognition system has trouble with new profiles. Maya crossed her arms. "My profile has been in the system for 4 years, and my face hasn't changed." The attendant's smile didn't waver. "It's standard procedure, ma'am. Happens often." But Maya knew the truth. This didn't happen to people with lighter skin. She glanced over and saw 2 white businessmen walk through the scanner. Beet green light. The entrance was as smooth as silk. Maya stepped aside, checking the flight app on her phone. Everything was perfect. Site 1, first class from JFK to Charles de Gaulle. She had paid in full, no reward points used. Yet the attendant was still typing slowly on her screen, glancing at Maya with a look of discomfort tinged with a challenge. From across the gate, Maya noticed an airline staff member, tight khaki pants badge, swinging phone in hand, covertly taking her picture. Stealthy but awkward. The photo was taken without a flash, but it was clear to everyone. He turned to his friend, snickering and whispering something. Soon a message popped up on a nearby tablet. Guess who's pretending to be rich today, with Maya's picture included. A girl suppressed a laugh while another whispered, "She's about to ask for bottled water." Maya stood still, her jaw clenched, not angry because this wasn't new or an accident. Just a few minutes later, a manager with a loose tie and a nervous look appeared. "What's going on?" he asked. The female attendant spoke before Maya could open her mouth. The system couldn't verify her. "I was about to call security." The manager glanced at the screen and then turned to Maya. His eyes lit up as if he had just seen the light of day. "Wait, Ms. Robinson." Maya showed no emotion. "Maya Robinson," he repeated, his voice dropping. "Robinson Center, right?" The laughter around them died down. The attendant quietly put her phone back in her pocket. The manager hurriedly adjusted his tie and bowed his head. "We're sorry. There must have been a technical error. Please go ahead through the priority line." Maya tilted her head, her voice cold but calm. "No rush. I have time to be served properly." The scanner beeped green as the manager entered a priority code. The first-class cabin glistened with golden light, and the premium leather seats welcomed Maya. But as she entered, the entire cabin seemed to freeze. Eyes glanced sideways, shoulders tensed slightly. Maya walked to seat 1A, placed her suitcase in the overhead compartment, and sat down gracefully, adjusting her blazer sleeve as if silently asserting her right to be there. Across the aisle, an elderly man around 60 with gray hair, a neatly pressed shirt, and an expensive watch was collecting trash from the dining table. Without looking up, he handed Maya an empty espresso cup and a crumpled napkin. "Sorry, could you hold on to this?" he asked Maya slowly. Turned her head, her gaze locking onto him, silence heavy with meaning. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice calm but as cold as ice. The man blinked finally, noticing her elegant attire and leather briefcase. "Oh," he stammered. "Oh, you're not an employee," he stammered. His gaze drifting, his face turning bright red, mumbling something about weak lighting. Maya Robinson remained silent. She didn't need to say a word. His awkwardness hung in the air, heavy like an unpleasant smell. Behind her, a child's voice cut through the tense atmosphere. "Mom." "Why is she sitting here?" The boy Ethan Grant pointed directly at Maya. "Because she has brown skin, his mother." "Mrs." Grant hurriedly pulled her son down and whispered something no one could hear. Clearly. Maya exhaled slowly, her gaze absent, as she stared out of the window, where her image blended with the distant runway. The air in first class seemed to thicken, stifling, like an invisible wall closing in around her. She could feel the eyes of dozens of passengers scrutinizing her, silently weighing her worth. Some were indifferent. Some looked uncomfortable, but most wavered between judgment and denial. One row behind a woman wearing a pearl necklace and a Chanel scarf leaned toward her husband and whispered, "Nowadays, anyone can sit here." The man chuckled softly, not even bothering to hide it. Maya gripped the armrest, her fingers turning white against the seat's leather. This wasn't the first time she'd faced such disdain. Maya had sensed it. Back in grad school, recognized its subtle form in her first investor meetings, and caught its rhythm from the first glance when she entered rooms full of powerful people whose eyes fixed on her skin color before her credentials. No, it didn't hurt anymore. Her anger now simmered inside quietly, waiting for the right moment to burst out. As Maya tried to steady her breathing, a voice interrupted her thoughts. "Ma'am, would you like a mimosa before takeoff?" "Flight attendant." Lauren smiled, but the hesitation in her voice was all too familiar to Maya. "We're serving special drinks for first-class passengers today." Maya tilted her head, gently replying, "Aren't all first-class passengers special?" Lauren paused for a second, then quickly answered, "Of course, I mean if you'd like." Maya smiled faintly. "I'll have sparkling water." Lauren nodded and walked away, while Mr. Whitmore across the aisle glanced at Maya again, pretending to focus on his tablet. The hum of the airplane's engines began to rumble beneath their feet, preparing for takeoff. Maya sat still, quietly reviewing in her mind what had just happened. Denied by the scanner, publicly humiliated, treated like staff pointed at, by a child whispered about, like an out-of-place item in an upscale store, and the plane hadn't even left the ground. Maya took out her phone quickly, typing a message to Adrian Cross, the one she trusted most in security. Monitor the cabin closely. List will follow. No signal yet. She put her phone away, leaned back in her seat, and adjusted her scarf around her neck. Across the aisle, Ethan Grant's mother gave a small, apologetic smile. An apology meant to soothe her guilt rather than take responsibility. Maya didn't respond, not because she lacked compassion, but because she wasn't obligated to comfort those who refused to face their own wrongs. A few minutes later, Lauren returned carrying a glass of water. "Here you go." She placed the glass on the small table, her fingers lingering for a moment as if waiting for acknowledgement. Maya nodded politely without saying a word. She took a sip of water and then turned her gaze forward. A soft chime sounded in the cabin, followed by a gentle announcement over the intercom. "Ms. Robinson, please come to the galley." Although the words were gentle, this was hardly a suggestion. Passengers glanced back again, curious as to why the woman who had just spoken was being invited once more. Maya slowly stood up, checked her scarf, and walked down the narrow aisle toward the back of the first-class cabin. In the galley, Lauren and another flight attendant were waiting the ladder, holding a clipboard and wearing a stiff expression. "Ms. Robinson." Lauren spoke her politeness, covering something cold inside. "There's been a small adjustment to your seating." Maya narrowed her eyes. "Sorry, what did you say?" the other attendant interjected. "For operational reasons, your seat has been moved to 34E. Maya interrupted, her voice calm but icy. 34E is a temporary seat, not a regular passenger seat. The attendant quickly responded, already trained for this. Technically, it's still a flexible seat for passengers. Maya blinked and pulled her phone out of her blazer pocket. She opened the Orion Air app. The original booking still clearly listed seat 1A. Her priority membership was still active, but beneath it appeared a thin red notification. Reservation modified. Passenger flagged for secondary check due to disruptive behavior. Maya's breath caught disruptive, she murmured. "I didn't raise my voice. I haven't broken any rules. I haven't even requested anything, except for water." Lauren took a step back, her gaze wavering. "It might just be a mix-up from the team at the gate," she offered defensively, her words clearly insincere. "Sometimes the system flags by mistake." Lauren defensively explained, clearly flustered. Maya Robinson tightened her voice low and sharp like a knife. "Let me get this straight." She said, her gaze cold. "A system that can't scan my face. A team of staff sneaking around, taking pictures of me. And now they've tagged me as disruptive, simply because I sat quietly in my rightful seat and behaved with courtesy." The staff member holding the clipboard lowered his gaze to the floor. Lauren avoided Maya's stare, her confidence beginning to crack. Maya took a deep breath and asked, "Who flagged me?" "It's an internal procedure." Lauren stammered, her facade crumbling. "The operations department handled it, based on what Maya pressed. Who reported me? We don't have access to those details." The other staff member interjected, his tone more defensive than apologetic. Maya leaned slightly forward, her voice smooth as silk, but as cold as steel. "Do you have any idea how often this happens to women like me? Do you know what it feels like to be viewed as a threat simply because you're in the place you rightfully belong?" Silence was their answer. Maya calmly swiped her phone, took a screenshot of the app, and then accessed her personal security dashboard granted through her premium airline partnership. A few quick actions and a source code appeared. Passenger ID, ref flag source, internal crew channel. The blood in her veins turned to ice. They did this on purpose. Someone manually entered her ID and flagged her due to bias. Maya immediately opened the security channel and sent an urgent message to Adrian Cross, Global Operations Director, system abuse detected on Flight 204. Suspected manual intervention, request trace of procedure. She put her phone back in her pocket and stood tall. "I'll return to my seat," Maya declared calmly. Lauren stepped forward to block her. "Ms. Robinson." I'm afraid Maya cut her off, her gaze sharp as a blade. "If you're not planning to forcibly remove me, it's best to let me return to my seat quietly before things escalate beyond control." Maya's tone wasn't a threat, but a simple statement of the obvious truth. Lauren hesitated, then nodded in helpless defeat. Maya turned and walked back toward her seat. The entire cabin seemed to ripple. Some passengers turned away, avoiding her gaze. Others watched silently, as if witnessing a storm slowly building. She calmly sat down, crossing her legs, her face expressionless. Behind 2 rows of seats, a man whispered, "She's turning this into a racial issue." The woman beside him shook her head. "No, they made it that way." Maya ignored them. She opened her tablet and continued reviewing her speech, though her hands trembled slightly, betraying the anger she was holding back. The discrimination hidden under a veneer of politeness still emitted the stench of a decaying system. Lauren slipped into the galley, but just a few minutes later, another face appeared. A young flight attendant with the arrogant demeanor of someone who had never been truly tested, casually walked down the aisle. In her hand was a phone held low to secretly film Maya, but just high enough to capture a clear image. Her name tag read, "Haley Turner." She whispered into her phone, live streaming while laughing mockingly. "See, I told you not everyone can keep up the act forever," Haley whispered as the live caption read. "When privilege goes too far on your flight." Haley's phone screen was filled with flying hearts and laughing emojis. "We find our own seats while others sneak in when no one's looking," she emphasized, then quickly snapped a selfie with a pitying expression on her face. Maya remained unmoved. She saw she heard, but she refused to give Haley the satisfaction of a reaction. Instead, Maya quietly took out her phone, opened her personal security dashboard, quickly collected the live stream link, recorded it, and uploaded it directly to her cloud-based evidence storage. The cabin lights shifted to the pre-takeoff mode, but the atmosphere was as tense as a taut string. 2 rows away, a man in a navy-striped suit sat up straight. He squinted, scrutinizing Maya, then turned to quietly ask his assistant, "Is that who I think it is?" His assistant, Noah Patel, glanced quickly before nodding. "Yes, sir. Maya Robinson, Robinson Center, keynote speaker on AI in medicine in Paris." The man exhaled loudly, looking both surprised and worried. "I met her last year at the Global Equality Conference. She saved an Alzheimer's project from failing." His eyes were filled with concern as he looked toward the aisle. How did she end up in this situation? Before Noah could respond, Lauren reappeared, moving more quickly this time, heading toward them with a focused expression. "Sir, please remain in your seat. We are finalizing pre-takeoff procedures." The man ignored her. "She's being harassed. Do you know who she is?" Lauren maintained her cold demeanor. "Sir, we have concerns about her identity. There are doubts about the validity of her ticket." The man shot back immediately. "That's nonsense. I've seen her speak in front of thousands. She's a guest speaker at the World Health Forum today. I've seen her at international conferences." The man in the striped suit emphasized. "Today, she's even a distinguished guest at the World Health Forum." Lauren's face darkened, her smile stiffening. "Sir, with all due respect, we've encountered impersonations before. Until her identity is verified by the security department, we ask that all passengers cooperate." The man squinted, his voice lowering. "So let me understand correctly. You're accusing a world-renowned medical innovator of being a fraud, while your staff is live streaming and mocking her to get views. Lauren blinked rapidly, caught off guard. I don't know anything about the live stream, she stammered. Then you'd better check your team, the man growled, because she just recorded evidence of your staff mocking her live. With that, he turned his face away. Lauren quickly spun around, hurrying back to the galley, but not before throwing a sharp glance at Haley Turner. Haley had just turned off her phone, her face pale as she stared at the screen. Maya Robinson witnessed it all, her face betraying no emotion. Her silence had become a sharp weapon. She knew the facade was starting to tear apart. The once confident faces now revealed fear, because when power combined with calm intelligence and her brown skin, it became something they could neither control nor shape. Maya turned her gaze back out the window. This time her image blended into the distant horizon. Somewhere out there, her name was being mentioned in boardrooms, legislative halls, and contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Yet here, in this first-class cabin, her existence was still being evaluated through a narrow lens. How she was supposed to look to deserve to be here. Behind her, the man in the striped suit lowered his voice, mumbling into his phone. Call Eagle. This flight's about to have a big issue. In the galley, Lauren whispered angrily at Haley, whose face now betrayed her concern. Not far from there, another passenger quickly took a secret photo of Maya, posting it online with the caption, Drama at Seat 1A. The whole cabin is silent. She doesn't even seem to be fazed. Just a few minutes later, a chime rang from the cockpit, summoning the flight crew to the front of the cabin. Lauren disappeared behind the curtain. Then 3 uniformed security officers entered. Their vests clearly read, Aviation Response Team. They moved without haste, without shouting. One of them politely signaled to Maya, his face expressionless. Ma'am, please follow us. No handcuffs, no threats. Just a calm, well-trained demeanor, clearly designed for containment, not escalation. Maya stood up, walking slowly, every movement exuding control and calm. Every eye in the cabin seemed frozen on her. No one asked, no one dared speak. This silence was the kind of silence that power desires when it feels its most vulnerable. When the heel of her shoe touched the carpet of the airport bridge, one of the security officers keyed in the code into his radio. Maya couldn't catch the numbers, but she recognized the response. 1 click, then 2, then utter silence. Their radios blinked, read, beeped once, and then fell completely silent. The 3 officers looked at each other, puzzled. One tried tapping his earpiece and adjusting his sleeve, but there was no response. Please confirm the signal, one of them muttered, but the communication channel remained dead silent. Moments later, the rear door of the aircraft slammed shut with a heavy thud. Inside the cabin, passengers began to murmur whispering questions. Outside, the entire terminal seemed to fall into an eerie state. Baggage handlers stopped midway. Aircraft technicians stepped away from the wing. Customer service agents slowly pulled their earphones out. 1 person, then 2, then everyone. All the radios on the airport tarmac dimmed. Maya stood silently watching, as if she had known it would happen. This wasn't a coincidence. This was the protocol she had set up herself. She glanced behind her. One of the security officers escorting her now seemed to be thrust into a world he hadn't been warned about. A young woman in a navy blazer, probably in her 20s, quietly approached. Her name tag read OP Support. The girl didn't speak, just brushed past Maya and discreetly slipped a small piece of paper into her hand. Maya opened it. The handwritten message read, They know who you are, and they're scared. Maya didn't smile. She didn't move, but her eyes sparkled with a cold, determined resolve. One of the officers turned to Maya. Ma'am, they just told us that this is a routine ID check. Now they've cut all communication signals. Maya looked him square in the eye. Because you're just shields being used by them, a way to block a storm they cannot control. The man wanted to ask more but held back. In the distance, a door swung open with a loud thud. A man in a dark gray suit, his face red with anger, stepped out, followed by two female lawyers in tight-fitting suits. "Ms. Robinson," he forced a smile, but it cracked. "We need you to spend a few minutes resolving this unfortunate misunderstanding." Maya Robinson stared at the man in the gray suit as if trying to engrave every tense wrinkle on his face. "The correct form of address," she said coldly, "is Doctor. And this misunderstanding began the moment your staff took out their phones to secretly film me instead of opening the procedure manual." The director blinked, flustered. "Of course, Dr. Robinson," he quickly said, his voice breathless. "Please allow us to escort you to the VIP lounge so we can explain further." "No," Maya replied, her voice soft as velvet but as sharp as a blade. "We'll talk right here in front of everyone. Otherwise, there's no need to say anything more." The two female lawyers behind him exchanged glances, hesitant. The taller one leaned in to whisper something. The director clenched his jaw and reluctantly nodded. "Very well," he said. "We received an anonymous tip that your ID didn't match." "That's a lie," Maya retorted bluntly. "The person who manually entered the override has been logged in my system for a long time." She paused, her gaze burning. "And your operational system was locked by the secondary security protocol that I designed. After your company received a 9-figure grant for the AI compliance program from my organization." The silence fell heavily, a dense, suffocating silence. The shorter lawyer stepped back, muttering under her breath in disbelief. "That's Robinson?" Maya calmly nodded. "And you," she said slowly, "just activated the audit process." The men's faces turned pale. Someone dropped their clipboard, the sound echoing sharply in the quiet room. Maya's phone vibrated gently in her pocket. A message from Adrian Cross. "The system is locked. Coordination transferred to Robinson Ops. Legal is handling." The security team still stood around, Maya visibly confused. No one knew whether they should protect her or protect themselves. And then, as if it had been planned, Spencer Reed, the deputy station manager, stepped forward. He was impeccably dressed, his hair slicked back, a shiny silver tie clip gleaming his ambitious posture. Apparent. Spencer flashed a smooth smile, his voice as sweet as oil. "Dr. Robinson," he began, "we truly apologize for the inconvenience you've encountered." Spencer gestured toward a corner of the lounge behind frosted glass. "If you agree, we'd like to propose a quick resolution package. We'll transfer you to the next flight and provide appropriate compensation." Maya didn't move, her gaze unwavering. "And what exactly does resolution mean?" Her voice was sharp as a surgical knife. Spencer smiled as though she had just asked him about his favorite wine. "Of course," he replied. "We'll refund double the price of your original first-class ticket and ensure a business-class seat on the next flight to Paris. It will take off in 90 minutes. Move to business class." Maya raised an eyebrow, crossing her arms. "Just temporarily," Spencer hurriedly reassured her, his tone artificially sweet. "We think this is the simplest solution for all parties." Maya stared at him for a long moment, allowing the heavy silence to crush the distance between them. Finally, she spoke, each word sharp as a knife. "You've removed me from the seat I legally paid for. You fabricated a false report in the system. You allowed your staff to secretly film and publicly defame me. And now you want to shove me into a lower-class seat to silence me with money." She paused, her eyes cold as ice. "And you dare call that simple?" Simple for whom Spencer faltered his professional mask. "Cracking Dr. Robinson," he stammered. "We never intended to harm you." "This isn't personal," Maya cut him off. "Everything here is personal," she emphasized. "Your mistake was treating me like an inconvenience, rather than realizing this is a recurring pattern." Spencer opened his mouth to justify, but Maya's phone rang, cutting him off. She glanced quickly at the screen. A new email. Subject notice of suspension of Skylux Elite membership. Maya tightened her lips and opened the email. The content was cold, exactly like a corporate template. Effective immediately. Your premium membership privileges have been suspended, pending review related to the security incident on Flight 204. The list of revoked privileges: lounge access, priority boarding, automatic upgrades. At the bottom of the letter, in italics, system alert. Passenger flagged for reputation. Risk code 89. Maya let out a small, cold laugh, a mocking laugh like witnessing someone set themselves on fire, and then expecting admiration for the flames. She held the phone up in front of Spencer. So this is how you resolve things now? Erasing a customer instead of fixing your mistakes? Spencer turned pale. That's an automated process, he stammered. We don't have control over everything. Maya lowered her voice, each word a blow. Let me simplify this for you. Restore my original seat. Withdraw the false report. Publicly apologize and admit the staff's misconduct. Spencer swallowed hard, stammering. That needs approval from higher up. Maya raised an eyebrow, her voice sharpening, drawing the attention of several staff members around them. Really? You can suspend all my privileges within minutes, and now you're playing the needs approval game. Don't insult me with that pathetic administrative script, she said firmly. Spencer's face shifted from pale to bright red. Dr. Robinson, you need to understand that this situation is becoming very fragile for everyone. Spencer Reed pleaded, his voice trembling. Maya Robinson leaned toward him, her voice low but razor sharp. Instead of worrying about how fragile it is, she said, you should worry that it's about to become a historic milestone. Maya's gaze bore straight into Spencer's eyes. I'm not the type of woman you can just kick off the plane and shove some compensation money at. I'm the one your board will have to answer to when your partnership contract is frozen mid-term. Spencer took a step back, his face paling. Impossible, he stammered. It's already started, Maya calmly replied. Your airline is preparing to announce an AI initiative in partnership with my foundation. The press release will go live in 20 minutes. Or it might not. It's up to you. Spencer frantically pulled out a tablet, flipping through it, stuttering. We can sit down and talk. No, Maya replied decisively, walking past him, heading straight for the glass wall overlooking the aircraft ramp. I'll stand here and wait. Either you send someone with proper authority, or I'll call the London office and notify them that your management is refusing to take responsibility. Behind her, the atmosphere was as tense as a bowstring. Arguments, frantic typing on keyboards, and hurried whispers from executives. Their faces panicked. Spencer Reed paced dialing incessantly, muttering, I need escalation, but his voice betrayed complete helplessness. Maya stood still, calm. She didn't need to rush. She had already made her move, and now the domino effect was just beginning. Just as another manager in a suit was approaching, preparing to intervene, a sudden voice rang out, shattering the suffocating tension. A child's voice, high-pitched and crystal clear. Mom. It's her. All eyes turned toward the sound. A young boy, Ethan Grant, eagerly pulled his mother's hand. It's the doctor who saved Dad on TV. The boy exclaimed, his voice full of excitement. The echo of the boy's words rang throughout the sleek lounge like a stone thrown into a still pond, shattering the silence. The entire waiting room suddenly went quiet. Everyone turned to look. Even Spencer froze mid-sentence. Maya Robinson slowly turned her head, her face still composed, expressionless. The boy, around 8 years old, his wide eyes shining, pointed directly at her. I remember her, Ethan said as the crowd now gasped. She was on the news. She cured Dad's brain tumor. Mom remembered Mrs. Grant looking between her son and Maya. Her face shifted from astonishment to shock. My God, she whispered. It's Dr. Maya Robinson. A wave of recognition spread through the terminal like an undercurrent. One woman gasped and hurriedly pulled out her phone. Another whispered, "I knew I'd seen her somewhere." Spencer Reed, who had just gained the upper hand, now looked ashen. Maya didn't smile, nor was she arrogant. She simply silently pulled her phone from her blazer pocket, quickly dialed a familiar number. She held the phone to her ear, her voice calm, but certain. "Activate priority protocol. Confirm. Timestamp. Flight. 2:04 incident. Suspend all level 1. Digital infrastructure for Orion Air until official remediation and contact from the executive board." A brief silence. Yes, immediately, the call ended in a matter of seconds. Just 5 minutes later, the screens in the terminal lit up brightly. The flight information board flickered, then updated in unison. Under the Orion Air column, all flights disappeared. A red message ran across all screens. All Orion Air flights suspended. Please await updates. We apologize for the inconvenience. Whispers, sighs, and the glow of phones flickered all around. Passengers gathered in front of the display, completely bewildered. A teenage girl near the coffee counter whispered, "Is this a cyber attack?" Her friend shook her head. "No, I know her. I saw her speak on TED Talks. She's not just a doctor. She built the technology that controls half of this airport." Meanwhile, Spencer hurried to the lounge counter, practically yelling into his headset, "I don't care who you have to wake up. She just locked all level 1 access. We've lost control over all gates." "No, not her people. It's her, behind Spencer." Mrs. Grant pulled Ethan closer to Maya. Her voice trembled, hesitant. "Dr. Robinson, I'm so sorry. My family owes you everything. Ethan's dad is alive because of you. I didn't recognize you earlier." Maya gave a subtle nod, her expression softening just a little. "No need to apologize," she said gently. "At least not from you." Ethan looked up, his eyes sparkling. "You're like Iron Man." "But real," Maya smiled faintly. "Not exactly, but I try." Around them, whispers of admiration began to rise. An elderly man with a cane muttered, "That's the woman they kicked off the plane." A young man in a suit, likely from the office, whispered, "Our team's been studying her neural mapping protocol all quarter." Finally, from the check-in counter, a shaky but formal voice spoke up. An older man, his tie loose, his face showing signs of shock, stepped toward her, fully aware of the gravity of the situation. "We want to speak with you directly. No more intermediaries." The airport director spoke up, his voice heavy as though carrying a confession. Maya Robinson turned to look at him, her gaze deep and calm as someone who was certain of her victory. Then she said, "Bring the right person here, because I won't sit down and talk to anyone who doesn't understand the real meaning of standing up." With that, Maya turned back toward the seat by the window, crossed her legs, and lightly placed her hand on her phone, her posture composed and unhurried. The airport director stood there, awkwardly calling and whispering hurriedly, as if praying Spencer Reed had disappeared, likely desperately searching for someone with enough power to reverse what Maya had started, though in reality there was no one left who could do that. The screens throughout the terminal continued to flash. The red message, "All Orion Air flights temporarily suspended." Cameras were rolling. News vans filled the parking lot outside the terminal. Rumors of the delay spread, flooding social media, and hashtags quickly shot to the top of the trending list. The video of Maya's unshaken composure was shared millions of times. And then the moment everyone had been waiting for arrived. The digital screen above Gate 12 flickered and then switched to a live broadcast. The corporate blue backdrop, Orion Air's logo in the corner, and a man in a sharp black suit with a stern face appeared before the camera. The caption read clearly, "Live announcement from Orion Air CEO, Jonathan Hale." The entire waiting room went silent. Jonathan cleared his throat, his hands clasped together on the glass table. "Good evening," he began, his voice measured, but each word seemed to be carefully selected from a crisis management handbook. "I am Jonathan Hale, CEO of Orion Air. First and foremost, I offer my sincerest apologies to Dr. Maya Robinson and all passengers affected by today's series of unwanted system failures." He paused for a moment, taking a deep breath, and continued, "We deeply regret that a valued customer and global influencer has had to endure procedural errors that have compromised her rights, dignity, and safety. We are conducting a comprehensive internal investigation to determine the cause and ensure that anyone found violating regulations will be held accountable." He emphasized, "This does not reflect our core values." Maya watched the screen intently, her face unmoved by his smooth speech. Around her, passengers nodded in agreement. Some furrowed their brows, their opinions already forming clearly. Jonathan continued, "I've personally reached out to Dr. Robinson to offer a personal apology and propose a satisfactory solution. We also remain committed to continuing our partnership with her organization on the Healthcare Technology Integration Project." Suddenly, the image on the screen flickered and then went completely blank. The terminal erupted with murmurs and questions. "Is the system down?" someone whispered. A crew member shook their head. "Just a technical issue." But Maya, unfazed, simply pressed a finger lightly against her phone, then tucked it into her blazer pocket. She stood up slowly, turning back toward the crowd, her heels echoing loudly across the lobby. "It's not a technical issue." Maya's voice rang out confidently. "I just cut it off." The room immediately fell into absolute silence. Even the airport director stood frozen in place. Maya walked forward as if conducting the entire room with her presence. "Jonathan Hale hasn't reached out to me." Maya continued, her voice calm but filling every corner of the room. "And any attempt to blame a simple system failure is not only dishonest, but also extremely dangerous. Because this," she swept her gaze around the room, "is not a coding error. The malfunction here," Maya emphasized each word as the culture. She stepped closer to the crowd. "He hasn't mentioned the truth that the technology Orion Air uses for passenger authentication, optimizing flights and ensuring data compliance." Maya paused for a beat. "Was developed with the collaboration of my own organization." "That's right. My foundation funded the development of this security infrastructure. The algorithms running at the gates are programmed by my team, and right now," Maya looked directly into the camera, "we are negotiating a $900 million expansion deal with the Orion Air Executive Board." The entire waiting area held its breath. That amount of money fell like a bomb in the thick, tense air. So Maya lowered her voice before anyone here mistakenly thinks I'm just a passenger who was moved to another seat. Understand this. I'm the one who created the system that you just weaponized against me." Around her, mouths dropped open. A middle-aged man whispered, "Oh my God!" The young girl by the coffee counter quickly opened her camera, her hands trembling. Maya gently turned around, facing directly at the cameras pointed her way. "What's happening today," she raised her voice, "is not a technical failure. It's a mirror. It shows how this society still treats those whose power is not expected to appear in its spaces." Maya looked straight into the camera. "I don't need their apology. I don't need compensation. What I want," she paused, her eyes burning with intensity, "is for every staff member at the gate, every board member, every programmer, and every executive assistant who ignored my credentials, erased my name, flagged my profile, livestreamed their mockery of me." She took a deep breath, then finished in a calm but powerful voice, "To know that I've seen it all and I won't leave." The screen behind Maya Robinson remained black. No one attempted to restart the broadcast. That digital silence was not accidental. It was Maya's strategy. a gap that she intentionally created, forcing the world to fill it with their own speculations and fury. And they did so with fervor and obsession. News headlines flooded social media. Doctor halts airline. Over racial discrimination, AI founder turns the tide after system bias. $900 million deal suspended amid systemic bias investigation. The company was in turmoil. Their first action was to hold a swift press conference outside their headquarters under fluttering flags, with a long line of board members pale-faced and looking more like defendants than leaders. Maya didn't appear. She sat in her office, arms crossed coldly, watching the live broadcast on her screen. The person facing the media was the interim CEO, Rachel Yates. Rachel's voice was tense but firm. Effective immediately, she declared, "We have terminated the contracts of Captain Patrick Evans and Chief Flight Attendant Haley Turner due to inappropriate conduct and severe violations of our professional ethics policy." The sound of camera shutters filled the air, and reporters shouted questions. Rachel raised her hand for silence, then continued, "All management staff and frontline teams will undergo mandatory training on inclusion and fairness under the supervision of an independent external auditor." Behind her, Spencer Reed stood frozen, his face as white as a sheet. The arrogant demeanor he once had completely gone. Now he was just a name on the waiting list for vetting. Maya leaned back in her chair, opening the leaked internal video. The clip that had shaken social media. It was a recording of Haley Turner live streaming on the plane, mocking Maya, calling her an imposter, followed by the scene of young Ethan Grant recognizing her in the lounge and shouting, "That's the doctor who saved my dad." The contrast, both tragic and heroic, was undeniable. However, the consequences didn't stop at a few firings. Investors began demanding an investigation, freezing capital flows. Legal teams were asked to provide chat logs, internal emails. An internal whistleblower revealed the airline had a secret Slack group called Bay Boys, where employees frequently posted images and made derogatory comments about customers they deemed unfit. Maya's photo also appeared in the group with a mocking caption, "Probably someone's assistant trying too hard to fit in." Under the post over 40, laughing emojis followed. The investigation expanded, but the most surprising part came from the passengers. One by one, they began speaking up on social media, some regretful, others ashamed. Then on a national talk show, one person appeared live. Curtis Mard, the middle-aged man who had sat 2 rows behind Maya that day, the one who whispered to his wife that she doesn't belong here. On television, Curtis's face was flushed, his eyes red from tears. "I didn't know who she was," he choked out. "But that's not the excuse. The truth is, I didn't care who she was. I just saw the skin color, the calmness, and the confidence she exuded. And I made the automatic conclusion that she didn't deserve that seat." Curtis swallowed his tears and continued, "I thought I was just being honest. But now I realize I was much worse silent and arrogant in the face of injustice." He wiped his tears. "I've learned about her work. She has saved thousands of lives. She has changed an entire profession, and I treated her like an out-of-place piece of furniture." In the room, Maya watched the interview. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just quietly watched. When the host asked Curtis, "If Maya Robinson were here, what would you say to her?" Curtis answered, his voice trembling, "I would say I'm sorry. Not just because I judged her, but because I took away the chance to learn from someone much greater than myself." The clip quickly went viral. Millions of views, hundreds of thousands of shares. But more importantly, it sparked a national conversation. Airlines rushed to review their employee training protocols. Many corporations announced partnerships with inclusion experts, inviting Maya to speak about AI ethics, race, and organizational responsibility. But Maya declined the speaking engagements. Not yet. She chose to focus on her work, strengthening internal trust, building new support initiatives, and most importantly, mentoring the next generation of game changers. Those who had witnessed her journey, not because of the scandal, but because of principles. Months passed since the fateful flight. One airline was disrupted. Many careers crumbled. The entire industry was shaken. But for Maya Robinson, the real journey had just begun. She didn't bask in the spotlight. She didn't chase after fleeting glory. She returned to her familiar rhythm, expanding new programs, managing grant disbursements, and most importantly, guiding a generation of professionals who had once been forced to remain silent. Her office was right above a modest free clinic in the sun-baked South Los Angeles neighborhood. From her window, Maya could see the weathered rooftops, the streets full of relentless, enduring life. Here, far from the big stage, far from the cameras, far from the multi-million-dollar contracts, Maya found what mattered most, the heart of her mission. On that hot Friday morning, amidst the slow-paced life of South Los Angeles, an unexpected event occurred. A knock echoed at the clinic door. Maya Robinson looked up from the patient files, thinking it was probably a late delivery, or a patient who had arrived tardy. But standing at the doorway was Haley Turner, the former flight attendant who had live-streamed her mockery of Maya to thousands. Haley looked entirely different now. No uniform, no makeup, just tired eyes, a hunched posture, and a job application, trembling in her hands. Maya said nothing at first. She quietly observed, noting every awkward detail, every fragment of remorse that cloaked Haley like a second skin. Haley cleared her throat, her voice almost a whisper. "I read your open letter last week," Haley began. "About the system, about healing. I know I don't deserve to be here, but I want to try." Maya leaned back in her chair, her gaze unreadable. "Try what?" she asked. Simply. Haley swallowed hard, then hurriedly said, "I've volunteered at women's shelters, relief stations for the past few months. I thought I could work at the reception desk here. I know how to listen. Now I didn't know," before Haley admitted softly. A long silence passed. Finally, Maya gave a slight nod, signaling to the chair across from her. Here she said, her voice calm. "We don't hire perfect people. We hire those who have been broken deeply enough to know how to reach out to the pain of others." Haley sat down, tears shimmering at the corners of her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. Maya handed her a glass of water, then returned to the patient files before her. No more words were needed. Forgiveness was never about forgetting. Forgiveness is choosing to plant seeds of hope in the lands once scorched by ignorance. 2 weeks later, Maya took the stage at the TED Summit in Vancouver as the keynote speaker for the closing ceremony. The auditorium was packed, the lights dazzling with the live stream broadcasting to millions across the globe. Maya stood there in a simple navy blue dress. No podium, no notes, just her and her voice. Months ago, Maya began, I boarded a flight hoping for silence, rest, and anonymity. But instead, I was given exposure not just to myself, but to a model, a script, a system designed not to harm loudly, but to silently exclude. The audience held their breath. But this story, Maya continued, is not about revenge. It's about responsibility. Responsibility when we have the rare opportunity to not only identify the flaws, but to reconstruct the very system that holds them. Her gaze swept over thousands of attentive faces. "Let me be clear, I was angry. And to this day, sometimes I still am. But I have come to understand something deeper. Forgiveness is not for those who hurt us. Forgiveness is for us, for those of us who deserve to move forward without carrying their burden." Maya paused, letting her words sink into every heart I've been called. Powerful, influential, even dangerous. She smiled faintly. "But above all, I'm someone who believes in the long game of change. Not change in form, not change in performance, but real change. Change that can be measured. Change that can be sustained." She raised her hand, and the large screen behind her lit up with two images. One was of her alone, surrounded by security officers at the airport. The other was a more recent image. Maya cutting the ribbon at the opening of a mobile clinic in rural Georgia. This Maya pointed at the two images is what happens when we not only survive injustice, but turn it into fuel, into a solid foundation. The entire auditorium erupted in thunderous applause. That evening in the quiet hotel room, Maya sipped her tea, the lights of Vancouver flickering outside her window. Her mind returned to the small clinic in Los Angeles, the patients, the intake forms she would review on Monday. Maya didn't need the accolades. She didn't need the awards. What she needed, what she had always needed, was to know that the next time someone like her steps onto an airplane, or into a boardroom, or through a door that had slammed shut in her face, the world would hesitate and think again, before closing it once more. When the spotlight fades, when the applause quiets, and the hot tweets start to cool down, Maya Robinson returns to what she's always believed in: healing. Not just healing for herself, but for the societal wounds. The wounds hidden behind cold glances, hushed whispers, and systems that seem impervious. Throughout this story, we've witnessed not just a strong woman seeking justice for herself. We've witnessed a silent struggle to ensure others no longer have to fight just to exist in spaces that rightfully belong to them, to make sure those doors that once slammed shut in their faces slow down, reconsider, and open. And Maya Robinson did not seek revenge. She chose forgiveness. But forgiveness here does not mean forgetting, nor does it mean weak compromise. Forgiveness in her way is an act of courage. It's looking directly at injustice, acknowledging it, and turning it into a foundation for a more just world. She was once dragged from her first-class seat under indifferent stares, and she was also the one who made the entire world stop, listen, and reflect. From the moment a child recognized her, not because of a plane ticket, but because of the lives she had saved. We understand that true value cannot be defined by appearance, skin color, or social status. It can only be defined by the impact you leave in the lives of others. Today, if Maya's story has touched you, remember, every time you stand up, even in the face of a dismissive gaze, every time you open a door for someone with compassion instead of prejudice, every time you choose to build instead of destroy, you are contributing to changing the world. And who knows, one day you might be the light that guides someone groping in the darkness. If this powerful journey has inspired you, don't forget to like, share this video with more people, and subscribe to the channel so we can continue spreading stories that warm and empower our hearts every day. See you in the next stories.